Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR in Southern California. It was an absolutely crazy race. We had a whole lot of fans in the stands. I actually heard from Dave Moody on Twitter. He said it's the most fans he's seen in quite some time, so certainly good to see all these fans coming out. We had great weather today in California, and we had a great action-packed race, probably the best race at this racetrack that I've ever watched, and probably the best race at this racetrack in its 20-plus year history. I believe this is like the 25th year that they've raced at this track. They actually used to race twice at this racetrack a year. They bumped it down to one, but this was an absolutely fantastic race. I'm excited to talk about it. It was crazy. These next-gen cars are crazy. Let's try to get all into it. But first off, the winner, somebody who is no stranger to victory lane, is back in victory lane. It didn't take him very long. Only the second race of 2022. Kyle Larson is once again winning. Now, he didn't win this race like he won a lot of the races in 2021. If you remember 2021, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you remember Kyle Larson winning. But he dominated plenty of races. He dominated Nashville. He dominated the Coke 600 at Charlotte. Dominated the Kansas late in the race. Dominated the playoff race in Texas late in the season in 2021. But today was a different situation. Didn't dominate the race at all. Was up front all day. Was in the top 10 all day, in the top 5 most of the time. But didn't lead. Tyler Reddick essentially dominated this race. Reddick led the most laps of this race. He was up front for the first 3/4 of this 200-lap race, and then obviously Reddick had some problems, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But Kyle Larson was able to take care of his car all day, didn't make some of the driver mistakes that we saw. We saw plenty of drivers, championship drivers, make mistakes all weekend. We talked about it in the pre-race, all the practice mistakes that we saw, all the qualifying mishaps that we saw that happened in practice and qualifying, and then we saw plenty of trouble today with drivers messing up and a lot of single car accidents in the race today. But Kyle Larson, no single car incidents that I saw on TV. I don't remember seeing him get in the wall at any point during the race on TV, at least. So a great day for the defending champion, Kyle Larson. Like I said, didn't take him long to get back to victory lane. And he's pretty decent at these 2-mile wider racetracks. We do know that. But wow, heck of a job by Kyle Larson to hold off Daniel Suarez, to hold off Joey Logano at the end to win this race. Let's kind of go down the finishing order here. I want to talk about at least the top 7. Austin Dillon finished second. That's a great day for him in that RCR number 3 car. He, once again, another driver that executed pretty decently all day to come back from a speeding penalty. It actually took him over 100 laps to come back from that speeding penalty. I believe he was a lap down for well over half the race. He got a speeding penalty on that. I think it was the second pit stop on lap 36. So great job for him to be able to come back. We're going to talk about a lot of coming back in this race because that's certainly what happened. So Austin Dillon, a great day to get a runner-up finish. Obviously, he would have liked to get the win, but hey, when you have a pit road penalty early in the race, takes you so long to climb back from, and you're able to finish in the top 2, finish second. Take that all day, take those points and move forward and look forward to going into Las Vegas. Erik Jones, he was running up front all day, leading multiple laps. I want to say he led the second most laps in this race. I have to go back and check that, but Erik Jones was very fast today. He was the only driver, at least in the first 3/4 of the race, that looked like could contend with Tyler Reddick for the win. Wasn't able to pull it off. And like I said, drivers were switching all over. I mean, there were drivers 2 laps down at one point, and then their second. It was crazy all day. It was like that the entire race. So it's definitely a lot of rebounding, a lot of disappointment for a lot of these drivers. We'll try to get into all that. But great day for Erik Jones. Daniel Suarez in the 99 car. Wow, for Trackhouse Racing. That is a huge performance for them to be able to run up front, get their sponsor up front on TV late in one of these races. It's absolutely great. He didn't get the win. He obviously wanted to get the win. He hoped he would get the win. He led right there at the end. He almost had it, but couldn't hold off Kyle Larson there. Kyle Larson was just so fast, and then Suarez actually ended up falling back to 4th. But in the end, still a great day for that Trackhouse Racing crew to finish 4th today at Auto Club in the second race of the season. A lot of people watched the second race. He got some TV time. He was running pretty decent all day long. I noticed every time I looked in the top 10, it seemed like Suarez was up there, at least in 10th or maybe even a little farther up. So not a situation where he came up right at the end. Suarez was one of those drivers that was steadily in the top 10 the entire race. So congratulations to him for getting the top 5. We'll see if he can continue this going into Las Vegas. See if these teams that typically don't do well or didn't do so good in 2021 or 2020, we'll see if they have a trend where they will start doing way better in 2022 with this next-gen race car. We'll obviously have to watch that. Joey Logano is another one. Obviously, like I said, the next-gen race car, he won at the Clash. Did pretty decent today, was actually leading today, was one of those drivers that was kind of holding off Kyle Larson for a little bit. Those two were going at it for the win. Him, Logano, Larson, and Elliott were going for the win there later on in the race, at least before that last caution. So Logano won going for the win, but did end up falling back to 5th. Like I said, drivers were just flying everywhere. You're leading one moment, then you're in 10th. It was like that the whole race. But Logano does end up getting a 5th place finish. Eric Almirola he was having some trouble all day long. Had some pit road problems. Actually spun coming onto pit road, but was able to recover from that. And able to get back up to 6th place. So good job for him. Kevin Harvick, first half of the race, I didn't even know he was in the race. He wasn't even in the top 20. I was going through the Twitter feed. I was hearing people say, wow, Kevin Harvick's doing terrible today. He ended up coming back to get a 7th place finish. Obviously, a caliber driver like Kevin Harvick, who has 60-plus wins, obviously doesn't want to be running 7th, but you have to take that when you had such a terrible day. And we'll have to see how that goes. Kurt Busch, second race for 2311 Racing in that 45 Toyota. Kurt Busch has a solid day, finishing in the 8th position. Daniel Hemrick, a very solid day for him in the 16 car, finishes 9th. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who was battling for the lead for well over half the race, ends up coming in the 10th position. So congratulations to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. On that top 10. A couple other finishers I want to talk about. Chase Elliott. Wow, Chase Elliott had not too sure what he was doing there at the end. He was in a battle with his teammate, Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott had a long day, for one. Had issues to start out the race. Spun, got in the wall, had plenty of problems, went down pit road. I believe he was 3 laps down at one point, but was able to come back, get all the way up to 2nd, and battling his teammate, Kyle Larson, and Joey Logano for the lead. Kyle Larson kind of turns up the racetrack a little bit, kind of cuts off Chase Elliott. Larson on the radio said... Larson says on the radio that he didn't know Chase Elliott was there. Chase Elliott said a few more unkind words about Kyle Larson. And then when Larson was coming back around to lap Chase Elliott, Elliott decided to get in front of Larson and kind of run him down the track a little bit, showing his frustration. And then ultimately after that, Chase Elliott spun around causing a caution, which made it much more difficult for Kyle Larson to win. He still won, but it definitely put Larson at more of a risk of losing the race. What a terrible example of how to be a teammate. What a absolutely disastrous way to be a teammate. I mean, what if Larson had have turned back up the track trying to dodge you, or Larson had have made a mistake and made contact with the 9 car? It would have took a Hendrick Chevrolet out of the race. That would have been absolutely devastating. So terrible example on how to be a teammate, Chase Elliott. I'm not sure why he thought that was okay. We've seen in the past where Elliott does get upset and tries to block the leader, which is understanding. I understand that you're frustrated, but obviously Larson didn't intentionally do that. It's one of those racing incidents. We know Larson's an extremely clean race car driver. I've said this in videos past. Larson's extremely clean when he's on the racetrack. So for Elliott to do that, wow, just a terrible example on how to be a teammate. And I'm extremely disappointed in the 9 car. You can't be doing stuff like that when it's your teammate. I know it's not a huge deal that he went and blocked him, but I mean, what if that could have gone way worse? There's a potential that could have gone way worse for the driver of the 5 car. So I'm really disappointed in Chase Elliott on that one. And then running so hard, if he didn't spin out on purpose, it looked like he might have spun out on purpose. I'm not going to say that though. But why were you running so hard when you were essentially out of the race? You weren't racing anybody. You're now a lap down. You're in 26. He ended up finishing 26. Why would you be running so hard to where you would even risk spinning out and causing a caution to mess up your teammate who's winning the race? Now, maybe if you're in 5th or 6th or even 10th, I understand it, but you're one of the slowest cars on the track. Why risk it? Like I said, terrible example of how to be a teammate by Chase Elliott today. I was extremely disappointed in that. Kyle Busch was able to make it a major comeback. He ended up finishing 14th, but he had a rough day, an extremely rough day. Actually spun. He was the first caution. He spun on lap 16, I believe it was, and was able to finally come back from all that. He had engine trouble. The engine was overheating. Took multiple laps. Went 4 laps down at one point trying to get that engine cooled down. Put some water under the hood to cool that engine down. Then had a flat tire right before the halfway point of the race, which brought him back down pit road, but was able, with all the cautions, to keep getting lucky dogs, keep getting wave arounds, and was able to finish 14th. Heck of a day for Kyle Busch to be able to do that. That is an accomplishment. Take the points. Like I said, it's obviously not a good day. Obviously, Kyle Busch goes into every race weekend expecting to win, wanting to win. But when you have such bad luck, essentially like you did today, take the 14th place finish, take the points that you could get, and go on to Las Vegas, your hometown, next week and try to win there. Not too terrible of a start for Kyle Busch, finishing 6th at Daytona and then finishing 14th today. So take it. Heartbreak for Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick led the most laps today, absolutely dominated the first 3 quarters of this race, and then when he was racing Eric Jones for the win, Tyler Reddick had a tire go down, and it was absolutely devastating to see. I'm not a Tyler Reddick fan at all, but that was hard to see because Tyler Reddick dominated this race for so long. He was doing a heck of a job holding off those guys on restarts, and he would lose the lead occasionally, but was able to get it back very quickly. Obviously, the fastest car on the racetrack, obviously the car that should have won the race was Tyler Reddick, and then bad luck took it away again. It's almost like if you go back to the Clash earlier this year, I know the Clash isn't a points race, but it's still a race. Leading the race, doing very good in the Clash, and then having an issue, a mechanical failure, something that's out of his control, take him out of the race is so frustrating, especially today because it was completely out of his control. He might have ran over something, could have just had a tire go down, who knows, but that is extremely disappointing. Then when he's up in the wall with a chance to maybe, obviously the car isn't totaled out yet, the 24 car gets loose right when he's going by the 8 car, trying to dodge the 8 car, and goes and rams into Tyler Reddick. So William Byron takes himself out and essentially takes out all chances of Tyler Reddick getting back up in the front and winning the race. So terrible day for Tyler Reddick. It's hurts, but hey, once again, that's a positive thing. Tyler Reddick is still going for that first win. Look at this as a positive. You're obviously doing very good in the next-gen car. I know it's just the Clash, but you led a lot in the Clash, and then you led a lot today in California, which is closer to what we'll be running in most of these races, or is a intermediate track, which is a majority of the schedule. So look forward to that going into Las Vegas next week. Take it as a positive, not as a negative. So yeah, Tyler Reddick, heartbreaking loss today. We'll have to continue to watch him. We obviously know he's a great caliber driver. I want to see what he's going to do moving forward into 2022 and if he can continue this consistency and if he can win some races. I'm going to call it right now. I think Tyler Reddick's going to win some more races as we continue to go on into 2022, just based off of the performance we saw today. It's heartbreaking, but I don't think this is it at all. The new car. This is the first time we've tested these next-gen race cars on an intermediate racetrack, like I said, not that long ago. And we had some good, and we had some bad. First off, let's start with the good. It's always, good to talk about the good first, right? These cars are harder to drive. We knew these cars would be harder to drive. We knew going into this that there was a chance that we would see more single-car accidents, and oh boy, we did. I believe we had 13 cautions in this race, which is the record for the racetrack, Auto Club Speedway. Oh my goodness. Wow. These cars are really hard to drive. The drivers complaining about how hard it was to drive. Drivers were spinning out constantly. Single car wrecks were common. Like I said, go back to the practice session yesterday on Saturday and the qualifying session, and drivers like Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski today in the race, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, making major mistakes. Chase Elliott, championship driver, making mistakes with these brand new next-gen cars at this racetrack. It's definitely interesting. I don't think we'll see quite as many cautions and quite as many single-car accidents when we go to Las Vegas next week, because these teams are obviously going to look into this and they're going to say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's try to fix some of the problems. The drivers are going to do the same thing. They're going to say, okay, we're not going to do that going into a similar racetrack like Las Vegas. So I think you'll obviously see less single-car accidents. I still think you're going to see more than you have the previous 3 years with these lower horsepower cars, but I love to see harder to drive. Harder to drive is way better. The bad thing about it that I think NASCAR obviously knows about, NASCAR will certainly address, is the tires going down. When you have a flat tire, you have to essentially get pushed off of the racetrack, especially if you have 2 flat tires. That's something that we're not used to seeing. If you're in the grass, even if the tire is not flat, you might get stuck. That's really frustrating to watch drivers, especially if it's your favorite driver, lose laps because they have a flat tire and they can't move based off of the configuration of the racetrack or just a flat tire. That's really frustrating. NASCAR, I know, is going to address that situation and will fix it moving forward, I hope. And it might take a few weeks for them to do that, but obviously something needs to be done. I've heard some proposals like maybe don't count the laps that they lose while they're getting pushed to pit road. Obviously that could be something, but we'll have to continue to look at it. But that's all there is to talk about after a action-packed race in California. We go to Las Vegas next week. Yep, we're continuing the West Coast swing, and then we actually go to Phoenix after that to finish out the West Coast swing. But I'm excited for Las Vegas next week. I'm hoping Kyle Busch gets the win at his home track. It's going to be incredible. I hope you guys tune in. I'll obviously do a video after the Las Vegas race, so you guys tune on back in. And of course, that's all there is to talk about. Let's get rowdy.